Hi, Jeffrey B. Stigletz here. Once upon a time, a long time ago, in a theater not so far from here, I learned a lesson in costuming that I've never forgotten.
I say the comfort and confidence of actors in their costumes is paramount. If a costume distracts you in the wrong way, then it hasn't done its job.
One piece of a costume can really inform your character and finally give it to you.
I definitely, as an actor, really do appreciate when costumes are finally coming in, because it kind of helps me step more into that character's mindset as an actor. All of the costumes that Genny pulled for us was just really transformative. Genny was so good about making sure that everybody felt comfortable in the costumes that they were wearing. Honestly, I just love looking at the pictures of them.
My story about Genny, is just so typical of her. She seems to know all the characters. She must, I'm sure she reads the play several times and really gets involved in who we are, who we're supposed to be.
I was 17 and I had this slip on, and I was dealing with body dysmorphia problems that were much worse than they are now. It really helped in my anxiety when we discussed the historical accuracy of it. It wasn't anything sexual. It wasn't anything to be ashamed of. It was just, that's what women wore to bed when they were falling asleep. Also, she brought up, if you're way too uncomfortable with that, then it is okay to be like, is there another option possibly? And then discuss it with your costumer at that point.
Sometimes I don't even get my whole character until I get the costume. So costumers are really important.
It really helped kind of click into the last piece because it's different from what I would normally wear. And just even how the fabric and the costume moves with me is different, and it kind of helps me figure out the sway of like how that character would move, how they would interact with their own clothing. There's a huge difference between wearing high heels on stage versus flats on stage.
And they were having issues with the number of costumes needed, and I jumped in and mostly made those red shirts for the bottle dancers. Although I have to say, I feel bad to this day that they looked amazing, but they were wearing the thickest, heaviest.
I was in the musical Camelot, playing a knight of the Round Table. One of my scenes was a sword fight, and my fellow knights and I practiced and practiced and practiced so that the fight would look good and also no one would get hurt. A few days before we opened, we finally got our costumes, and they looked great. The most magnificent thing about them was a velour cape. We looked good. That night, during rehearsal, we come to the fight scene. I come and meet my adversary. He pushes me back and I land on my back. I learned right then that, one, velour is a very slick material. I started sliding slowly, inexorably, sort of like a slip and slide, only not quite as fast. I slid right off the edge of the stage and into the front row. Fortunately, it was a rehearsal, and no one was sitting in the front row to have a knight errantly land in their lap. That night, the costumer said, "Okay, sorry, we're getting rid of it." So we lost the velour cape, but I can inform you that no knight, no patron, no animals were hurt during the run of the show. Costuming lesson learned.
Shadow someone, because there is the sense that there's a lot of glamour involved in costuming, but there is a lot of laundry and ironing and dirty socks, you have to think of. You have to find out what it is about costuming that you like, because sewing isn't as important in community theater because of the amount of time you have prior to a show. And you have to find out if you like to upcycle, if you can alter things, if you're just ready to throw a lot of money at things or borrow. I think you have to find what kind of show you want to work with. And you have to work well with the director because you are supporting the vision of that director. There's some that give you a lot of leeway, and that may be the right fit for you. You have to do most of your work away from the theater and come in during certain times to do fittings and tidy things up a lot. I think it's when I have to be concerned with the costume every night before it's used. And that was the angel costume worn by Carrie Grimes in Glorious, because she had feathers that had to be adjusted. We had to preen her feathers every night. And I had to make sure that the long tassels she used to pull them would work. I can't remember if you lost birds off your bird dress, if we had to make sure none of them, they weren't falling off. No, that's
nope.
I thought about, what is it, that my job supporting the vision of a director means there shouldn't be any oops. You know, I mean, we had to look after those feathers. When I think of an actor or actress on stage, wearing something I've made, found, or repurposed, call it boring or anything, I really want to make sure that the actors don't have an oops, because you've acted as well. You don't want your costume to be something you're worried about, or it's scratching you, or it's too tight or falling apart.
That story about the it was in Moon Over Buffalo, and she told me for this one scene that she had made me a wonderful costume, and I thought, oh, that's cool. But when I put that costume on, I played this old cranky lady who hated her son-in-law, and I did a lot of things to, you know, ruin his life. But in this scene, I got in a fight with my daughter, who she was in the costume of Private Lives, and I was in the Duana costume for Cyrano de Bergerac, and Genny made me this gorgeous dress, and I had this giant comb, and then a mantilla over it, and a fan. Oh God, you always have to have a fan. And so because of what she did, I mean, the scene would have been funny, you know, and I knew as I left, I would have gotten a laugh. But because of what she did, I got an ovation every freaking night because of the costume. And oh, also I had to ascend the staircase, but you know, with dignity, because I was right and my daughter was wrong. Anyway, the whole scene was due to Genny, and I never forgot it.
I had to make everything from scratch. So it wasn't a matter of being resourceful or scavenging or borrowing items, but it was actually one, and it doesn't receive the most recognition because there weren't sequins or fringe involved. It was costuming quilters, because there was collaboration early on with making sure the fabric choices would mirror the amazing quilts that were made by a group of women led by Francie Gass. And these had to be dresses that women on the prairie in 1850 would wear from marriage to pregnancy and then back again. And I, though, am very happy to see that those outfits get borrowed more than probably just about anything from the costume shop, because the pantaloons, or bloomers as you might think of them, the full smocks and aprons and the dresses are used by groups that borrow costumes from us. But they were so low key. Everyone wearing something that I had a hand in making. As an opposite thing to quilters, where I sewed everything, I just sigh and think about what I call the 50-cent dress, where Amanda Karp, who played Reno Sweeney in Anything Goes, has one scene where she is seducing Jordan Smith and is wearing, of course, a red dress where I had put sequins around it, and she has to use the skirting as kind of a cape, you know, as they're bullfighting. And I call it the 50-cent dress because there was a short period of time when Value Village, which is a source for quite a bit of costumes, was one of 3 stores piloting a program where they would just try to get rid of a lot of their stuff. And in the back room, you could fill a sturdy bag for $10. I was really, really good at packing it. And so when I'd get back and unearth it, I was always curious, well, what was my price per item? And this dress, which was very simple, was, you know, it turned out everything averaged out 50 cents. And I had more women and people just comment about this dress. It's one of the most popular items ever. I still have it. People do borrow it, and it does seem to fit quite a few body types. Don't know why. That's the biggest thing you might say, is that you use Craigslist, you use YouTube. I do that. Never watched a movie on the computer, but boy, I have found how to do some funky things for costuming. Oh my gosh. The things that I have to search for on the internet have created a weird profile. Everything from looking at swastikas for Sound of Music, NRA patches, which I refuse to buy, to skimpy underwear, to extraordinary large size clothing that might have to fit a man. It's pretty wild. I believe in Kostume Karma, and I can't depend on it all the time. Sometimes you are struggling to find something or just the right thing, and it really does show up. I mean, I really have walked through a space and found something, or I had someone who was shadowing me who, I swear, looked through a rack of clothing in the costume shop, and she found the perfect dress. Misha Kriz was in Anything Goes, and just finding the right dress for her was difficult. But Iris Lickle, the wig master, was moving to Chicago, and she walks in and she says, I have some things, you know, to donate. Would you like them? And I'm saying, it's the right size, beautiful color, and everything. So how you can't plan for that? That's community theater. Right now, most of the time you get to just call the Theater Guild, and we're still working on, I'd say, the best way to do that. If you call them, just know it may take time because, you know, we're a volunteer organization, and it sometimes wins its way to my my email box. But people have to remember that we don't mind holes or tears, mothball holes, anything like that, because there's nothing worse than having to distress a beautiful outfit. We welcome these things. And yeah, just calling the guild and I can get in touch. And remember that any item of clothing can either be upcycled or it's an inspiration, and it has a life beyond just the guild, because we do loan out to nonprofits all over the county, and would-be Playhouse quite a bit sometimes. So something that you're reluctant to get rid of is going to have a long, long life with us.